Shocking moment. My daughter's coffee attacked the devastating reason behind it at 3 a.m. The clock struck 3, slicing through the eerie stillness of the house like a knife. In that heavy, unsettling silence, something shifted. A loud crash echoed from the kitchen, jolting John upright in bed. Heart racing, he leaped out, his chest tightening. Was it a burglar? A ghost? His mind spiraled through scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. But nothing could prepare him for what he was about to uncover. As he stumbled into the kitchen, he was met with a shocking sight. His daughter, Emily, wide-eyed and trembling, stood frozen beside the wreckage of shattered ceramic. Coffee, steaming and dark as night, splattered across the floor like a crime scene. But why was her face pale? What did she see? He felt the air thick with tension, wrapping around him like a vice. Emily's hands shook, and he could see panic dancing in her eyes. The smell of burnt coffee filled the room. It mixed with something else, a strange, metallic scent, like iron. What could that be? He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm as questions raced through his mind. Just 2 days ago, they had noticed things going missing around the house. Little trinkets, even food. Emily had joked about a ghost, but was there something more sinister behind it? Dad, I think I saw something, she whispered, her voice barely a thread. He leaned in, his heart pounding louder than the ticking clock on the wall. Was it his imagination, or had fear crept into her tone? What had she stumbled onto? The room felt charged, as if they were just moments away from uncovering a dark secret. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emily's gaze dropped to the floor, staring intently at the coffee mess as if it were a puzzle waiting to be solved. Was it just coffee on the floor, or had something been there, something that made her scream? He knelt beside her, their eyes locking. What haunted his little girl? The tension rose, twisting in his gut. He knew they needed to figure this out, but would they uncover the truth before fear devoured them whole? The shadows seemed to whisper dark secrets as mystery loomed over them, leaving John on the edge of a chilling discovery. Emily's breath quickened, her eyes darting to the kitchen doorway, as if something lurked just beyond. John followed her gaze, squinting into the darkness that seemed to swirl at the edges of the room like a living shadow. What had terrified her so much? Emily, he said, his voice gentle yet firm, tell me what you saw. She swallowed hard, tears brimming in her eyes. It was standing right there. Dad, she stammered, pointing to the corner of the room. In the shadows. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw it move. The sheer weight of her words pulled him under like a current. Move? He tried to hold his voice steady, but it cracked like the ceramic on the floor. What did it look like? Emily shook her head, her lips trembling. I'm not sure. It was just dark. Too dark. It felt like it wanted something. Her fingers trembled, brushing against the broken pieces of the mug, and John felt a cold dread pooling in his stomach. As if sensing the tension, the house creaked. An echo reverberated through the empty space, making both of them flinch. What if there really was something lurking, something watching? Let us turn on the lights, John suggested, his instinct taking over. He moved towards the switch, but hesitated. What if they illuminated something they weren't prepared for? Don't. Emily's voice was sharp, slicing through the thick silence. What if it doesn't tea like the light? His heart hammered in his chest. She was right. The thought of what could happen made him hesitate. But leaving the kitchen cloaked in darkness felt just as treacherous. In a moment of resolve, John flicked on the overhead light. The bulbs screeched to life, their harsh glow casting long shadows across the walls. They stood frozen, scanning the room. See? Nothing. He tried to reassure her, though his own voice felt hollow. Yet the unease lingered. John noticed something on the counter. Amid the coffee-stained chaos lay a small, twisted object. It glimmered oddly in the light, a stark contrast to the morning chaos. He edged closer, reaching for it despite every instinct screaming at him to leave it alone. As his fingers grazed the cold surface, a shiver danced up his spine. It was a compact mirror, the glass cracked and smeared, yet something was etched on the back. Symbols, runes? It looked ancient. His gut twisted. He had seen something like it in a documentary about supernatural artifacts. What is that? Emily whispered, her voice trembling even more than before. I don't know, but it feels wrong, he replied. The air hummed with a strange energy, and he could feel the shadows pressing in. Before he could comprehend it, a loud knock echoed from the front door. The sound sliced through the tense atmosphere, making them both jump. Who could it be at this hour? Stay here, John instructed quietly. He dashed to the door, heart pounding louder than ever. With a shaky hand, he gripped the doorknob, stealing a glance back at Emily. She was frozen, eyes wide, staring into the darkness as if it might consume her. He took a deep breath. Whatever was out there, they needed to find out. But as he turned the knob, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change forever. What waited beyond that door? Would it be another eerie surprise, or something far darker? The door creaked open slowly, and John's breath caught in his throat. The outside light cast an eerie glow, illuminating a figure shrouded in shadow. He squinted, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Who is there? He called, his voice wavering slightly. A moment of silence stretched thin. Then, a familiar voice echoed back, filled with both urgency and fear. Dad, it's me, it's Sarah. He stepped back, shock rippling through him. Sarah, his eldest daughter. But what was she doing here at this hour? Her face appeared frazzled, eyes wide with panic. Dad, please. Let me in. John didn't hesitate. He quickly opened the door wider, allowing her to stumble inside. As she crossed the threshold, he noticed how unnaturally pale she was, as if the color had drained from her. Are you okay? He asked, the concern evident in his voice. Sarah glanced over her shoulder as though expecting something to follow. I don't know, there is something outside. Something I can't explain. It's like it's watching me. The hair on John's arm stood on end. Watching you? Emily emerged from the kitchen, her fear morphing into confusion. Sarah? What's wrong? Something is wrong with the house, I felt it. She took a deep breath, eyeing the compact mirror that John had dropped on the counter. You felt it too, didn't you? John and Emily exchanged a glance before he responded. We found this. I thought it just felt off. The moment Sarah laid eyes on the mirror, she gasped, stepping back. That is not just any mirror. It's connected to something else. A chill ran through John. What do you mean? People believe that mirrors can hold spirits, Dad. That they can be windows to other places, other realms. I must have broken one when I was out on my way here. I felt its anger. Her voice trembled, but her resolve sparked a fire in John's chest. He had to protect his girls. Another loud knocking erupted from the front door, violent and insistent, echoing off the walls. John's heart raced at the sound. Who is it? He shouted, forcing his terror down. Open up. We're scared. It was Tom, their neighbor, standing outside, fist raised, eyes frantic. John opened the door again, letting him inside. What is going on? They're coming for us. We need to barricade the house. Tom shouted, his breath clouding with panic. I saw figures lurking around in the dark. They didn't look human. The air inside became charged with urgency as they gathered by the front windows, peering out into the night. The oppressive darkness seemed to crawl closer, stitching itself around the house like a predator tightening its grip. What do we do? Emily whimpered, clutching her mother's arm. We stand together, John replied, heart hammering against his ribs. We're not letting anything in. Just as he said that, a shadow fell across the window, a shape, tall and elongated, flickered just out of sight. John felt the power of the moment snatch his breath. As fear sunk into the fabric of their small family, Jeremy, their youngest, appeared in the hallway, sleepily rubbing his eyes. What is happening? John's mind raced. How could he protect them? What was waiting in the shadows? Stay close to me, buddy, he urged. Suddenly, the lights flickered, buzzing violently as if a storm raged outside, and the air grew heavy, thickening with an overwhelming dread. Dad, the mirror, Emily whispered, her gaze glued to the glimmering object on the counter. Before he could react, the mirror's surface rippled like disturbed water. Something twisted and dark began to emerge. What had they awakened? And what did it want from them? The mirror pulsed with a grotesque energy, as if something within it were struggling to break free. A dark mass swirled behind the glass, twisting into shapes that danced like shadows under a flickering fluorescent light. John's breath caught in his throat, the reality of their situation crashing down around him. "Everyone, back away," he shouted, his voice raw with fear. He stumbled backward, instinctively shielding his children, while Emily yanked Jeremy back to her side, her grip tight enough to leave marks. "It's coming," Sarah screamed, pointing at the mirror, her face a mixture of terror and disbelief. Just then, the lights flickered in a staccato rhythm, bathing the room in ominous flashes. With each flicker, the mirror's surface writhed more violently, and a chilling whisper slithered through the air, barely perceptible but chilling to the bone. "Let me out, I need to be free. What on earth is that?" Tom muttered, his voice wavering as he peered closer at the mirror. John's heart pounded in his chest. "We have to break it. We were warned." His mind raced back to the stories his grandmother had told him, tales of mirrors not just as reflections, but as portals to the unknown. "What if we shatter it?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes darting nervously between the mirror and John. "We might set whatever it is loose," Sarah countered, her own voice tense. "But we can't just leave it like this." Another thunderous knock rattled the door, sending a fresh wave of terror through the family. It felt as though the darkness outside was pressing in, hungry and relentless. Shadows flitted just beyond the glass, twisting at the edges of their vision. "I think I saw something move," Jeremy squeaked, clutching Emily's hand tighter. John glanced back at the mirror, feeling an overwhelming urge to either destroy it or uncover its secrets. "We're not letting those things in," he declared, the sound of his own voice a small shield against the encroaching darkness that in that moment. A deep cracking sound resonated from the direction of the mirror, drawing everyone's eyes. The glass surface shattered, not in pieces, but into a dense mist that began to swirl dangerously in the air. Out of the chaos, shadows took form, swirling together to create elongated silhouettes that approached from the broken mirror's haze. They were figures, indistinct yet humanoid, their features shifting like fog. John's instincts screamed at him to run, to get his family to safety, but his feet felt glued to the ground. "Dad!" Sarah shouted, her voice laced with desperation as one of the figures reached for her. John lunged forward just in time, pulling Sarah back against him. "Get to the back. Now!" he roared, his heart racing as he swiftly ushered the others toward the kitchen, where they could barricade themselves safely. "What do we do?" Emily cried, panic rising in her voice. "Find something to hold the door," John urged, pushing his family into the next room. His thoughts raced. Could they survive whatever was emerging from the remnants of that cursed mirror? Fear pricked at every sense as the figures began to slink into the room, mist curling around the edges of their bodies, inching closer. Shadows stretched out, reaching for the warmth of life. Just as they barricaded the door with a kitchen table, a chilling laughter echoed from the shadows, sending chills down John's spine. "Let us play." John's muscles tensed, the weight of the world bearing down on him, and as the sounds of the haunting laughter filled the house, it struck him this was just the beginning. What did it want to play? And what terrifying challenge lay ahead as they plunged deeper into the unknown? The kitchen darkened, the air thickening with dread. John turned to his family, eyes wide, pulse hammering in his ears. He grabbed the wood of the table, feeling the splintered grain digging into his palm, anchoring him in the moment. The relentless laughter echoed again, mocking, echoing against the walls like a death knell. "Listen," he barked, cutting through the fear. "We need to keep quiet. It might not know we're here." Emily nodded, her eyes darting around the shadowy room, scanning for any survival tools. Stress tightened her jaw, and she slowly moved toward a knife rack, choosing the strongest-looking one. "Do you think it will help?" Jeremy asked, clutching his sister's leg like a lifeline, his eyes wide with terror. "I don't know," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "But I'm not going down without a fight." There was a moment of stillness. The laughter began to fade, almost as if it were savoring their fear. John felt their vulnerability like a raw wound. They were huddled together, an island of warmth in the cold, dark sea. Just then, a new sound emerged, a scratching, clawing noise, as if something were trying to break through the door. "Stay close," John whispered urgently, moving in front of his family like a shield, the knife clutched in Emily's hand gleaming ominously. Then, silence enveloped them. It was suffocating. Suddenly, the door shuddered, rattling violently as something slammed against it. The table pushed back slightly from the force. "Whatever it is, it's strong," Tom muttered, eyes wide as he stepped back to secure the barricade. "Do you really think we can hold it back?" Sarah whispered, pressing her back against the wall, eyes darting between her father and the door. John breathed deep, willing courage to fill him. "We must believe we can. It's all we have left." They were outnumbered, but they weren't out of options. Chilling laughter erupted around them again, this time intertwining with whispers that slithered through the cracks. It sounded almost familiar, like the echoes of their past. "Play with us, come out, we won tea," bite much an icy dread wrapped around John's heart. It was like they were calling to memories long buried, pulling at the seams of sanity. The shadows outside the door pulsated, and with every touch against the barricade, John could feel his resolve beginning to fray. "What do they want?" Jeremy whimpered, tears pooling in his young eyes. "Let us just be quiet," John urged. But doubt not at him. They were not just trapped, they were being toyed with. A sudden thought struck him. The stories, they could be tied to the mirror? "What do you mean?" Emily asked, stepping closer to him, lowering her voice. "The mirror wasn't just a portal. It could be locked something away, or maybe it holds something they want. They're waiting for us to give them something. We have to understand them. Or maybe they just want to take us for a game." Tom interjected, fear creeping into his voice. Dark figures began to shift outside their makeshift fortress as the laughter grew darker, more menacing. A hand from one figure reached toward the cracks, and John swatted it away, his heart racing. "We don't play games." Crouching low, they were just breathlessly hoping for dawn. But as minutes morphed into hours, fatigue clawed at them, and shadows began to blur the space in front of them. John's instincts screamed louder. This darkness had dominion over the house, and each second held a new horror. Suddenly, through the chaotic echoes, one voice rose above the others, sharp and filled with a child's whimsy. "You're already part of the game." John's heart sank. What did this mean? It felt as though they had crossed an invisible boundary, and now played by unknown rules. What is the first move? He thought, panic swelling. But as he gazed into the deepening shadows, he knew the answer hung in the air like a curse waiting to be answered. What more was in the mirror that had drawn them into this deadly game? As the whispers became increasingly desperate, laced with sinister intentions, one thing became crystal clear: they were not alone. And the stakes were about to rise. John felt a pulse of fear crash over him like a wave. The laughter, once a mere echo, transformed into a taunting melody that danced through his mind, wrapping around him with the chill of a winter's night. He glanced at his family, their faces pale under the flickering light of the remaining kitchen bulb, which struggled against the encroaching darkness. "Okay," he whispered, trying to pull together all the fragmented thoughts swirling in his mind. "We need to think. This game, what did those stories say? If they want something, what could it be?" Emily tightened her grip on the knife, her knuckles white. "If we could just get out of here." "No, we can't think like that." John's voice shook, the urgency of the moment overtaking him. "We need to find out what they want. Those shadows, they were children, right? What if they're looking for help?" "Help? You mean, like our help?" Tom scoffed, fear making him braver. "They're monsters. Did you hear the way they laughed? We can't assume. Let us not forget what happened in the stories. The mirror opened doors, sure, but it locked things away too," John urged, desperation grabbing hold of him. "What if we could bargain? What if there's a way to communicate?" A sudden banging at the door jolted them. The air shifted sharply, thickening with an overwhelming mix of dread and adrenaline. Shadows outside swayed, motioning toward them like puppet arms, their laughter morphing into a horrendous cacophony. "Please," Jeremy cried, clutching Emily's leg tighter. "Make them stop." "Jeremy, stay calm," Emily said, her voice wavering. "We have to figure out how to let them know we know they're there." With her knife still raised, Emily forced herself to the edge of the table. "Maybe I can leave something out for them. Something to show we mean no harm." Her voice dripped with fear, but held a flicker of hope. John saw the determination in her eyes. "What do you have?" "Just some snacks. From the pantry." She took a step, hesitating as she sensed the shadows shift again, pulsating like a dark heart. "Do you think it could work?" "It's worth a shot." John's mind raced. If they could trade, maybe the laughter would cease. Maybe the shadows would retreat. As Emily crept toward the pantry, shadows slinked closer to the door. dark shapes melding into grotesque figures. The air thickened, saturated with malice. John's heart pounded against his ribs, a drum signaling an ominous march. Would this work? His instincts screamed at him to grab his family and flee, but that wasn't an option now. "Keep your eyes on me," Emily called back, trying to project calm. She rummaged through the cupboard, her movements frantic yet purposeful. The shadows loomed wider, the laughter intensifying as if feeding off their growing fear. Suddenly, the door rattled violently this time. It wasn't just a tapping. It was the beginning of an all-out assault. The table vibrated beneath John's hands, and with one resolute blow, the door splintered, the latch giving way. "What do we do?" Tom shouted, panic spilling over. "Don't panic," John bellowed as he darted to reinforce the door with his body. But everything blurred. Desperation overtook reason, and then silence. Each family member held their breath. The laughter receded like a tide retreating from the shore. John felt a strange, tangible shift in the air, akin to a coiled spring preparing to snap. "What just happened?" he murmured, eyes darting to the door. In that heartbeat of silence, Emily emerged from the pantry, clutching the snacks tightly in her hands. "I did it, Dad," she started. But the moment was shattered by a horrific screeching that split the stillness like glass shattering. From the darkness, a shape lunged through the new opening, grotesque and twisted, eyes glowing with an otherworldly hunger. "Run!" John screamed, as the figure lunged forward, its laughter now transforming into a roar that echoed in their bones. They surged toward the back door, hope racing against their growing horror. Would they escape this nightmare, or would the game they thought they could play engulf them forever? With the door charging toward them, every heartbeat echoed a painful reminder they had stepped deeper into the game than they ever realized. What awaited them outside? What rules governed this darkness? As they fled, a new sound filled the air, one that sent icy fingers of dread into their hearts. It was a child's giggle, and it sounded far too close. John hurled himself forward, adrenaline fueling his flight as the shadows erupted behind him. The thundering laughter of the creature enveloped the space, indistinguishable from the cacophony of fear the family shared. He didn't dare look back. They needed an escape. They needed to reach the outside. "Keep moving," John urged, gripping Tom's shoulder as he pulled him along. Emily was close behind, her pulse pounding in rhythm with the footsteps racing out of the chaos. Each breath felt like a battle, the air thick with the acrid scent of panic. The hallway stretched before them, impossibly long, as if the house itself were trying to thwart their desperate attempt to flee. The shadows flickered against the walls, teasingly altering shape, whispering secrets just beyond reach. "Where's Jeremy?" Tom's voice cracked, panic seeping in. "He was right behind us," Emily cried, twisting in place. "Jeremy, don't stop. We can't go back," John shouted, remembering the flicker of those hungry eyes, the thrill of malice. He pushed them onward. But the echo of Jeremy's muffled whimper reached their ears, suffocated by the relentless laughter. It was like a cruel game. The darker the path became, the more Jeremy's pleas clawed at their hearts. "Dad," Tom cried. "I can't just leave him." John's stomach twisted. His instincts screamed that they had to act fast. "Listen, we have to find a way out. We can help him, but we have to move now." In their frenzy, they stumbled into the living room, a space where laughter used to fill the air, now dread hung like smoke. The windows glimmered, framed by the encroaching dark, but one flickered the same warm light that embraced them in happier times. "Look," Emily pointed towards the window. "That's where we need to go." John could feel the tug of hope balancing on a knife's edge. "Okay, let us go." As they rushed toward the window, the laughter erupted again, this time sharp and ominous. Shadows clawed at the walls, their hunger palpable, and just as they neared the window, the entity from before surged through the doorway, blocking their escape. "No!" Emily shrieked as the figure loomed large, eyes like burning coals, filled with a deranged glee. "Everybody back!" John shouted as the creature lunged, twisting in grotesque angles. Its shriek pierced through the air, drowning out their thoughts. They stumbled backward, John's heart racing wildly. "Get to the back door. There has to be another way out." They pushed through the room, weaving among furniture, adrenaline dulling the pain of scraped knees and bumped shoulders. As they dashed past the old piano, the keys began to tremble, faint notes rising like a ghostly chant, eerily cheerful amid the chaos. "Now!" John shouted, bursting through the back door, flinging it open. It creaked ominously, resisting their escape as if the house had a will of its own. Night enveloped them, fresh air stinging their lungs. They bolted out into the yard, but their freedom was short-lived. The darkness flowed like a thick fog, closing in. Laughter morphed into 100 voices, all children echoing across the space, mocking them, weaving through the trees. "Find Jeremy!" Tom yelled as he scanned the garden filled with dark shadows flitting across the grass, fleeting and giggling. Emily grasped John's arm, terror etched on her face. What if he is trapped inside? What if they're taking him? John's chest tightened, fear gnawing at him. "We have to draw them out. We need to find a way to reach Jeremy and ensure he knows we're coming for him." But as the peal of childlike laughter grew louder, so too did the chill that wrapped around their hearts. A fleeting glimpse of a small shadow in the moonlight drew John's gaze away, revealing an undeniable truth. "Dad, do they want us? Or do they want him?" And as despair clawed at their throats, a breeze gusted through the trees, carrying with it a smattering of laughter that twisted into a single refrain. "Join us." The shadows danced around them, their shapes blurring into one. Frantically, they exchanged glances, terror mounting like a boiling pot about to explode. Could they ever truly escape the game they had unwittingly entered? "I want to let them take you," John vowed, but his voice wavered as the shadows grew closer, and just then, a flash of light erupted from the old mirror hanging in their hallway, illuminating the night with a horrifying brilliance. Shadows recoiled, laughter dwindling. "What the hell is happening?" Emily gasped. John's mind raced. A new realization struck him like lightning. They hadn't just stumbled upon a game. They had been invited into a cruel ballet, and to save Jeremy, they would have to dance along. The mirror flickered. A chilling question sliced through the air. What was waiting on the other side? The air hummed with a malevolent energy as shadows writhed like serpents around them. John's pulse quickened, heart hammering against his ribcage. "We can't stand here," he shouted, urgency lacing his voice. But the mirror's glow seemed to pull them, its brilliance a magnet for terrified souls. "What do we do?" Tom gasped, fists clenched at his sides. He was barely a child, yet carried the weight of decisions that felt far too heavy for his small shoulders. John squeezed his son's shoulder tight, desperate to instill courage through touch. Then the piercing laughter resumed, louder and closer, a choir of sinistrous children with no faces. The world around them twisted, planting seeds of doubt deep in John's mind. With every moment they lingered, the grasp of the shadows became more apparent, their fingers like frigid tendrils brushing against skin. "Jeremy might still be in there," Emily said, her voice trembling yet fierce. "What if that mirror is the only way to reach him?" John stared into the beacon of light, wariness flooding him. Was stepping through the mirror a path to salvation or doom? Memories danced in his mind, the warmth of family dinners, Jeremy's laughter echoing in the living room. They had to try. "We have to go. We have to save him," he declared, drowning out the doubts creeping in. "Together?" Tom asked, eyes wide with a blend of fear and defiance. "Always together," John vowed, as if they could forge their way through the darkness with just their bond. Clutching each other's hands, they stepped toward the mirror. The air felt electric. Desperation licked at their heels, urging them forward. "Count to 3, John instructed, gripping the boys tighter. 1, 2, 3. They dashed through, breathless and terrified. The world blinked out of existence as they collided with cold glass. An icy shock coursed through them, a jolt that pulled them apart. Suddenly, silence met them. They were no longer in the yard, but in a hollow space, the air tinged with echoes of laughter lingering like the stench of decay. The walls around were a patchwork of distorted reflections, warped images of themselves flickering in and out of existence. "Jeremy." A hoarse whisper was their only response, a voice that carried the weight of despair. It felt familiar, a call that struck deep within John's heart. "Jeremy?" he shouted, the echo mocking him, scattering his hope like dust. A flicker caught his eye, a small, pale figure hiding in a glimmering mirror at the far end. "Dad." The voice cracked, trembling like a frail leaf tugged by the wind. "Jeremy." He surged forward, pulling Emily and Tom with him, desperation fueling their every move. But laughter erupted around them, drowning out their calls. The shadows surged forward, sweet, twisted laughter echoing their every word, fingers outstretched as if to seize them. "Join us, forever stay close," John yelled, each breath a bated gasp as the mirage of family warped around him. The mirrors glistened, showcasing horrifying possibilities, endless versions of themselves, shadows embracing laughter that was never meant for them. They stumbled upon a grand chamber filled with frayed mirrors, all reflecting distorted depictions of joy twisted into torment. John felt his hands slipping from Tom's, the weight of unseen forces pulling them apart. "Dad, help!" Tom's voice trembled, but John couldn't turn. He saw Jeremy's face in a mirror nearby, trapped but alive, desperate. "Jeremy," John called, his heart fraying at the edges. As he approached, another laughter erupted, cold and cruel. "Join us," it beckoned again, and the allure of the shadows began to envelop him. Suddenly, Tom broke through, reaching for his brother. "No, don't join them, Jeremy. Stay with us." "Tom, hold on," John shouted, desperately trying to shield them both from the approaching darkness. The shadows thickened, swirling, and John could feel the pressure in the air, a tangible force against his chest. He reached for his boys, but the space warped, flickering like a malfunctioning bulb. "Dad, where's the way out?" A flash of light from the mirrors illuminated the far wall. There, etched within the crystalline surface, was a door, one shimmering with promise, yet shrouded in danger. "It's our only chance." But they were running out of time. The laughter swelled, echoing like a death knell, the shadows closing in around them. "Jeremy, hold on," John shouted, lunging for the door that seemed to pulse with hope and fear. As they raced forward, the laughter wove into whispers, weighty and alive. "You'll never escape, join us." And just as they reached for the door, a sudden chill swept through, freezing John's heart. A hand tugging at him, shadows reaching desperately, and then the echo of Jeremy's laughter, twisted, high-pitched, and filled with something darker. "Join us." The ground beneath them began to tremble as the mirror began to fracture, and in that instant, he realized this was not just about escape. It was a choice that would define them forever. Would they break free, or was the darkness too alluring, too powerful to resist? With the world trembling around them, John could only wonder if they would find Jeremy before it was too late. As they lunged for the door, a wave of energy crashed into them, throwing John back as though the very air itself fought against their escape. The laughter became a cacophony, rising in pitch until it was nearly unbearable, a shrill symphony of taunting despair. Shadows converged from all sides, wrapping around Emily and Tom like dark servitors, clawing to claim their essence. "Tom, Emily," John shouted, a primal fear clawing at his throat. He struggled to rise, feeling the coldness of the floor seep into his bones, each echoing laugh drumming incessantly at the edges of his sanity. The door shimmered before him, flickering like a mirage, and in that moment, he knew he had to reach it. "Hold on," he yelled, scrambling to push himself up, muscles straining against the weight of invisible hands. Tom's terrified expression pierced through the shadows, his little body nearly engulfed by darkness. "Dad, help!" Tom cried, his voice breaking. "Stay together," John demanded, but his voice faltered under the pressure of the laughter that seemed to come from everywhere, tauntingly inviting them to succumb to the looming darkness, to join its ranks forever. "I'm coming." John pushed forward, feeling something soft and cold brush against his cheek, a reminder that they were not alone in their suffering. Images flashed before him, echoes of memories, moments where laughter once flourished, now distorted and grim. A vision of Jeremy flickering behind a mirror, eyes pleading. Suddenly, with a violent snap, the door seemed to pulse with urgency. It radiated a spectrum of colors, dazzling yet terrifying. Was it a gateway or a trap? Each pulse felt like a heartbeat, thrumming in time with John's own, resonating deep within him. "Let go of him," Emily shouted, her bravery shining in her eyes. She twisted around, fighting against the shadows, focusing her will on her brother. That small crack of defiance lit a flame within John. He surged forward, pulling from the depths of his heart, fueling a desperate strength. "Hold on to each other," he yelled, extending his hand forward as he approached the door again. His whole being focused on reaching it. If triggered by their determination, the shadows screamed, a sound of pure malice that echoed throughout the chamber. They swirled around, growing darker and thicker, pushing against John, trying to turn his resolve to soft despair. "Jeremy, can you hear me?" John shouted, desperate, but only the shadows answered, mocking with their cruel laughter that clawed at his sanity. They were sinister, and John could feel their tendrils brushing against him, whispering hints of hopelessness. "Dad!" Tom yanked at him, pulling him back. "Don't let them in. I want tea." John gritted his teeth, heart racing, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Every fiber of his being screamed to reach that door, to break free from the torment that grew ever closer around them. With one last surge, he launched himself toward the door, arms outstretched. "Together!" he roared, as if his voice alone could shatter the grasp of darkness that threatened to encompass them. In that instant, a blinding light erupted from the door, forcing the shadows back in a wretched shiver. The cruel laughter was silenced, replaced by a ringing tone that grew louder and filled the air with warmth. "Go, now!" John shouted, the light beckoning them with urgency, promising safety. Even as he felt the claws of despair hold on tighter, they ran, breathless and wild, the door barely inches away now. The shadows recoiled with howls of rage, and just as John reached the threshold, he felt an icy hand grasp his ankle. Time froze for a heartbeat. The last thing he saw was a glimmer of Jeremy's face, eyes wide in fear and blanketed by shadows, before a snap like thunder echoed in the chamber, the world shuddering as he felt himself plummet backwards, and then darkness. "John, wake up, please." A voice stirred him from the abyss, but as he opened his eyes, he gasped in horror. He lay on the ground where they had started, outside the yard. The mirror was gone. The air felt heavy, but more terrifying were the empty spaces around him. Where were Tom and Emily? Panic flooded him. What had happened? He felt the shadows rise within him, what lay beyond the door, trailing behind like a cold whisper. The world around him felt no longer familiar. Something was very, very wrong. He had to find them. His heart raced as he stood up, scanning the yard, the echoes of Jeremy's faded laughter dragging through his mind. In a moment of bleak realization, he understood. The darkness wasn't gone. It was still there waiting for its chance. "Tom, Emily," he shouted, dread creeping into his bones. He had escaped, but they were still lost. But deep down, a sinister voice whispered, "Maybe it's already too late." The hunt had just begun. What price would John have to pay to find his family again? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, a deep rumble echoed in the distance, and he knew he wouldn't be alone for long. The ground was dry beneath John's feet, the air buzzing with a tension he hadn't noticed before, one that wrapped around him, squeezing and pulling, as if the world was holding its breath. He staggered from the spot where he fell, still reeling from the disorienting shudder of their dark escape. The house loomed behind him, its windows dark as if it were a creature blinking in the night. "Tom, Emily." His voice was hoarse, but he knew he had to shout. Every echo carried his growing dread further into the treeline at the edge of their yard, where shadows pooled and whispered vile things. "Please answer me." Nothing but silence answered him. That he felt panic claw at his insides. The lingering memory of Jeremy's fading giggle still echoed in his mind. Were they trapped still? Had the darkness claimed them? Each heartbeat felt like a drum rolling toward a battle he hadn't prepared for. Suddenly, a shadow darted across the grass, a flicker at the corner of his eye. "Tom, is that you?" Without waiting for a response, he dashed toward the direction of the movement, feet pounding against the ground as his heart raced, each breath a desperate plea for them to be safe. There they were. He saw them, the small forms ahead, silhouetted against the low glow of the moonlight peeking through clouds. "Dad!" Emily cried, her voice ringing with relief. She and Tom appeared at the edge of the shadows, faces smeared with dirt and fear, but alive. "Where were you?" John rushed to them as they collided in a tangle of arms, warmth breaking the chill that had settled so deeply within him. "What happened?" he rasped, gripping their shoulders in frantic relief. We were in the shadows, Dad," Emily stammered, her voice quaking. "They were trying to play with us again." John's heart plunged, remembering the laughter they had heard, echoing like a funeral dirge. Just as the terror subsided within him, a shudder swept through the air, as if the darkness itself were rumbling in the distance. "We have to get away from here," he said, glancing back at the house as a low growl vibrated beneath the earth. "We can't stay. I saw something in the trees." Tom pointed, his face pale. "Something big not like me." Before John could respond, the ground trembled again, and the shadows began swirling, thickening around them, pulsating with a dreadful vitality. He felt that cold grip tightening again, heads darting in every direction as figures emerged, eyes aglow with malicious glee. The shapes of forgotten tales spirits, once children twisted and turned, now hungering for life. "Run!" John yelled, pulling the kids along, heart pounding in sync with the darkness chasing them. They sprinted toward the thick woods, where the trees stood tall like giants watching over them. Light flickered low through the leaves, giving them a stark contrast against the dark presence that lurked behind. "We have to find a way out," Emily gasped as they crashed through the underbrush. "We can't let them take us again." "Keep moving," John urged. The taste of fear lingered on his tongue. They darted deeper into the woods, with branches scratching at their skin and snapping beneath their feet. Shadows chased them, sounding close whispers filling the air. Suddenly, John stumbled, pain jolting through his ankle as he landed hard on the ground. "Get up," Emily cried, holding on to Tom as he raised his tiny hands to shield them. "No, go," John yelled, but they wouldn't leave him behind. He felt a surge of pride mingled with desperate anger. "I'm not abandoning you, Dad." Emily's voice was firm as she helped him right himself. "We're fighting this together." And just like that, something inside John ignited. He was terrified, but he also felt something building, a fire born from their fear, turning into resolve. "Let us do this," he roared, adrenaline pulsing through him as he stood, leaning on Emily's steady grip. "If they want a game, we'll give them one." Together, they turned toward the encroaching shadows as they surged forward, faster than they dared. The darkness around them cracked, laughter roaring, echoing madness closing in every direction. But this time, instead of running, they opened their arms wide, ready to face the nightmares that wanted to consume them. "Think of everything we've lost," John shouted, the tremors of their predicament in every syllable. "Remember the light. Remember the joy." Then, like a flare in the dark, a light flashed around them, bright and glowing like a beacon of hope. It flickered and flared, pushing the shadows back momentarily. A powerful force filled the air, driving the figures that haunted their memories away. The collective will of love surged forward, freeing them from the grasp of despair that had sought them. "Keep it together," John shouted, fighting against the emptiness that tried to dim his spark. "We are not their game." And just like the stories his grandmother told him, love became their weapon, their bond solidified against the dark invitation to give in. With renewed strength, they charged into the heart of the shadows. The echoes of laughter rose spectral, losing footing against the solid foundation of their unity. They wouldn't submit to the darkness. They had each other, carrying more power than the unseen monstrosities that hungered for souls. With one last burst of might fueled by love, memory, and the heart of their family, the brush of shadows withdrew. The figures howled in protest, but they had pushed through the veil. The three of them stumbled into a small clearing, bathed in a surreal glow. And scathed yet breathless, they turned to one another. Had they really escaped, or had they merely opened the door to a new battle? But there in that moment, beneath the hum of the trees and in the light that had returned, John held his children close. "We did it," he whispered, a tear escaping the corner of his eye. "Together, we can fight anything." They stood united, their resolve stronger than any darkness. Through the pain and fear, they found their way back to each other. Whatever was lurking in the shadows could shift and crawl, but they would never back down. The cycle would end here. The shadows hung back, knowing they were stripped of their power. Together, the three of them stepped forward, ready to reclaim their lives. Their laughter ringing true as the dawn began to break, golden light spilling across the horizon, sweeping away the remnants of night. It was not just an ending. It was a new beginning. Now, it's your turn. If you love this roller coaster of a story and want to dive deeper into the next exclusive adventures, you need to subscribe immediately to to our channel. This is the moment to show your support and make your voice heard. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, so we can keep bringing you thrilling tales like this. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what comes next. The story doesn't end here. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let them join the journey and experience this with you. Together, let us make this community thrive.